All right, what's going on, y'all, man? Katazwan, man. I'm back at it again, man. And let me take the hat off, man. First and foremost, I want to start off by saying, call halal Yahweh B'Shem Mashiach Yahweh Shai, man. That's all praise to the Most High God of Israel in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, man. And diving back into this lesson, man. I guess you can call this a part 2 of this lesson, man. On the new moon not being the Shabbat meaning the word seventh day Sabbath, seventh day weekly Sabbath, right? As you guys have probably seen, we had a conversation with the brother Ariala. I slightly had, I guess you can call a conversation with the brother Chief, but it wasn't really a conversation. Let's just be honest about the whole thing, right? We're not going to completely do a whole recap on what happened, but more than there were scriptures being talked about, it was a lot of just pretty much yelling back and forth, right? And brothers looked at it as me being prideful or whatever the case may be, when that was never the intentions for that debate to go that way. In all honesty, I felt like as if I was defending myself more than being prideful, because we're not going to do the whole pointing the fingers back and forth with all this, that, and the third about the recap of the live. You know, if you seen it, you seen it. If you didn't, there was more attacking on one side than there was the other. You know what I'm saying? There was more disrespect on one side than it was the other, right? But that's neither here nor there. We want to get straight into what's going on, man. Straight into the scriptures, because now I have my sources up. Now I have my game plan prepared, or whatever the case may be, you know, whatever was said. And I just want to get straight into the scriptures, man, and prove this wholesomely and truthfully through the spirit of the Most High God, man, through Yahweh, man. By Shema Mashiach Yahweh Shai, man. None of this is about pride to me, even though brothers were throwing the word pride around, even though brothers don't really know what that word means, to be prideful. You know, pride was exempted on, or exemplified on one side more than the other, honestly. But you know, I'm gonna do this humbly. You know, I want to save the derogatory comments and all this, that, and the third, and just get straight to the scriptures, man, because that's what it's about to me, man. That's what it's about. You know, it's not about whatever camp I'm in being better than another camp. It's never been about that to me, as regards to the truth. You know what I'm saying? This is about doing the Most High's work. It's not about making yourself look better than another person, or this, that, and the third, or calling a brother dumb. Or it's not about that, man. So we're gonna get straight into the scriptures, man. And I'm just gonna go into the opening, right? Or let me share my screen so I'll present my screen. All right. Let me share. All right. So the new moon is not the weekly Shabbat, which is the seventh day weekly Sabbath, right? The new moon is not the Shabbat, right? And why I open it up with that in quotations, because as we were going into with Ariala, the word in Hebrew, right? Him being I would say you can call him a Hebrew scholar, right? He's pretty studied in linguistics and stuff like that, right? And as I was breaking down to him the difference between the word Shabbat and Sabbaton, right? Now, we do know that Shabbat means rest, right? We do know that Sabbaton means to rest, right? We do know that they're both of their root words concur with one another, meaning to rest. But when we look at the lexicon, as I had showed him, where it shows you the contextual usage of the word, right? We see that the word Shabbat is demonstrated differently in verses than the word Sabbaton is, right? So where it refers to your seventh day of your week, or the Lord tells you he worked for 6 days and rested on the seventh, it uses the word Shabbat, right? It doesn't use the word Sabbaton, right? Other examples, right? When we look at Leviticus 23, and we see in certain verses where he's referring to holy days, right? Like even the Passover, right? That's like what verse, I think 3 through 4 or 3 through 5. He refers to the word Shabbat. It says Shabbat Sabbaton, the seventh day of the week, right? Of rest, right? But any other verses that you go to where it's referring to a Sabbath, right? In Leviticus 23, you would see it generally using the word Sabbaton, right? Feast of Tabernacles, or trumpets, right? You see the word Sabbaton being used. You don't see the word Shabbat, which means the seventh day of rest, right? But you guys get the premise. If you didn't understand the premise before, you can go watch the previous videos or the live. You guys get the premise, right? Because that went over a lot of heads. And quite frankly, like I already knew how the debate would go, right? I already, it wasn't even really a debate. If we look at it from respectfully from a realistic standpoint, it's no different than what I told the brothers, right? We pulled up with a couple of scriptures, right, to address. Now, some of the things that we said was going over heads, it even went over a lot of people in the crowd's heads. But if you go back and you look at even some of the comments, there are people that caught those comments, right? And for the people that caught those comments, I'll let you look at brothers' responses to that yourself, right? Because brothers were talking about pride and you know, being humble and this, that, and the third, but judging of character is not something that's hard to do. And everybody sees how I articulate myself. I don't articulate myself as somebody that's puffed up or talks down on people, because that is actually goes into the definition of pride, right? Exalting oneself and pretty much making somebody else seem that like they're less than you, which a lot of that was going on, right? So me exemplifying this haughty, cocky, prideful spirit is just conflated with me being a confident person. When I feel attacked or when I feel as if I need to stand my ground, I'm going to stand my ground. So, that cannot be conflated with pride. It's just, it doesn't fit the definition, and it doesn't go hand in hand with the definition. You know what I'm saying? But that's neither here nor there. So let's go and dive into it, right? The new moon is not the Shabbat, the 7-day weekly Sabbath. The new moon day is still a part of the 6 working days, right? Now, we're going to just go straight into what the brother was asking of me at the time. Now, I had scriptures to demonstrate it, but like I said, my sources and everything, I take my accountability for that. I went in very confident and knowing the sources I had, knowing the things I even had with the Farmer's Almanac, right? Which we'll touch into, right? But I didn't have everything pulled up. It was pretty much, I got there, I did some on the spot stuff. It was like, okay, look, I can pull all these up on the spot. But I had everything on my phone as far as my sources, scriptures, and that just was me being quote unquote unprepared for the debate. So I can take accountability for that as a man. Hey, that was a bad look. But let's go into what he said, right? So let's go into right here, right? Ezekiel 46:1, right? Because this was what he was asking me to do.
In most cases, because and he said in the video, right? Actually, Cassius wanted the video, right? And he said in the video that the new moon is a working day in most cases, right? Right.
Which I did say, the new moon is a working day in most cases. Now, why most cases? Because, like I said, when you look at scriptures like Leviticus or books or chapters like Leviticus 23, where the Lord is listing out your feast days, your holy days, and verse 37 and 38, right? He makes a very strong point on separating the two. He says these days are your holy days and your feast days, aside from your Sabbaths, aside from your Shabbats. That word right there is not Sabbaton, right? So he said, aside from your 7th day weekly Sabbath, these are your holy days, right? So for the new moon, and we see the new moon in Leviticus 23, you see these days being Sabbatons, not 7th day weekly Sabbaths, right? So because what? Your new moon is your first day of the month, right? That's what the word new moon means. And when you go into the the word new moon is not called a Sabbath. It's not called a Shabbat. It's not called a Sabbaton in the lexicon. It is just called a festive day, a festival day, right? Culturally, a day that the Israelites would do sacrifices and they would have pretty much parties. So it was a culturally festive day, right? So I concur to that.
And I want you to demonstrate and show me how the new moon is a working day in most cases. Because I'm looking here in Ezekiel 46, and it's juxtaposing the new moon from a working day.
So just juxtaposing, right? It means basically putting two things close together to have a contrasting statement, basically, right? So basically, he's saying the Sabbath and the new moon day are being called one and the same here, which is not. It's just not, right? For brothers who, you know, are quick to insult brothers on when they have a scholastic agreement, I mean a disagreement. Simple English. This is like simple English, man. It's rudimentary, man. Right? There's a separation between the two because the word "and," right? We understand that that wasn't in the Hebrew, right? We understand that the word "and" wasn't in the Hebrew. But when we look at the word "and" in English, right? "And" is used for comparison of things, yes, but it's also used as an additive word, right? When you're adding to something, right? So just because it's saying your Sabbath and your new moon, it's not calling them one and the same. Now, the statement that I was making is that this is I don't even know what you would call it, right? This is just a what do you call that? Sorry about that. Basically, brothers are getting stuck on the wordplay here, right? You're thinking that it's just meaning something that it's not, right? That is comparing these two to being the same exact things when it's not, right? You do sacrifices on both of these days, correct, right? But like I asked the brother, right? And people were in the comments were saying, oh, he's rambling, but it went right over their heads, right? And then when you look at some of his comments, there's people that are saying, yeah, bro, you went around what he said. It went right over your head, right? If the Lord gave you 6 working days and let's start right here. If the Lord gave you 7 days of a week and he gave you 6 working days to work and 1 day to rest, right? Then your count should follow that exact same structure that he gave you, right? And we're going to dive into that with Ezekiel and we're going to dive into that with Exodus, right? Because their premise on things is that I've heard it 2 different ways. The new moon is the first day, and then you have the first working day after, which is already 2 days, right? And then you have 6 working days after that new moon, and then the 7th day is the Sabbath, right? So brothers don't understand that is 8 days, right? That is not even a week. That's 8 days. That's over a week. But you tell this to brothers, and they're like, where are you getting this 8 days from? Where are you getting this zero count from, right? Now, a statement that Chief had said, right? He said that I made this quote unquote, right, I guess doctrine or had this ideology because I didn't understand what I was following. Well, how the hell did I understand what I was following when I was following it for 5 years with you guys? Right? How so? How so if I was following it for 5 years with you guys, right? And through the spirit, the brother Gabar right there, he's never read the Bible. You know what I'm saying? He's a what you would call a proselyte. He's never read the Bible, and then he just got into this truth about a year ago, right? But it took an unbiased opinion. He would be an actual unbiased opinion, somebody that doesn't have any knowledge of these things, right? He was keeping the Sabbath with us. We broke it down to him the way that we learned from Sakari, right? Whether Sakari learned it from GMS, whoever created this doctrine, we broke it down to him the way that we learned, the exact same way. And we argued with this man for about 2 hours until he made a point, and he was like, "Bro, how could the new moon, which is supposed to be the first day of the month, which is usually going to be your first day of your week as well, usually, right? How can that be the Shabbat? because the brothers call it the Shabbat. They call the new moon the Shabbat. They don't call it the Sabbath time. They call it the Shabbat. So I'm using their wordplay against them, the 7th-day weekly Sabbath. And he read that to me. He's like, bro, look at the word Shabbat. It means it's going to be on the 7th day. How do we conflate the two? And how is our first day our 7th day? And that's where it all started, right? Now, also with people calling it the zero count goes right over people's heads. This went over my heads for a while, right? And I'm gonna teach you guys something about humility, right? And why I said I'm not a prideful person. I'm not a dishonest or haughty spirited person, because I did something that a lot of brothers can't do. We debated BOW, right? We debated BOW on this uh prior to us studying this doctrine a little bit more and figuring it out. And I'm fully sold. Let me just make the record clear, as I said in the video, right? Because I don't know what happened there, but I'm fully sold on the 7th day landing Friday to Saturday, because we're going to get into the history on it, right? I'm fully sold on that, and I even said that in the video when he asked, "What day do you guys keep?" I specifically said, as of now, I see it landing Friday to Saturday. I never said I didn't know. I never said that. The other brother said that, which was conflicting, right? So it made things a mess. No, it's not a problem. This is his brother's first time debating. He's new. He's new to the truth. It is what it is. But at least he's honest, right? So a lot of things that a lot of brothers can't be, right? When I came and I started doing the research on these things myself, the history, the scriptures, and I seen how things didn't align up, I reached out to the brothers at BOW, because we thought we had like a little private debate amongst each other. We thought we smashed them in it, right? We thought we won the debate. All we did was win the argument. And that's the same thing that happened with Ariella. You know, it's if you notice, and even Chief goes on live. Chief's live was 3 hours. It was a 3 hour live just about me. It had nothing to do with scriptures. It had nothing to do with proving their stance. It had everything to do with him just being prideful and downplaying and down talking me, a person that he used to call his brother, or when he see me, hey, Ruben, that's my nigga, this, that, and the third, right? I don't respect that, because I've always been a respectful person toward him and toward other brothers in the camp. And the brothers treated me like I was their enemy, and then tried to play the victim game, right? Of saying he did this, that, and the third, when I didn't. I didn't attack anybody, you know? First thing I did when I went into Chiefs Live, I said, brother, can we talk? Can we talk? Ah, da, 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 da. If you notice, the same things that they accuse other people of doing, they do. They do. It's very blatant and clear. This is not to get off topic or to bash, but I'm just addressing this. That's what they do, right? I come in peacefully. Brother, can we talk? Ah, da, 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 ah, da, da. Show me the screenshot. Brother, I just want to talk. Like, cool. He ends up actually going to the messages, what I was referring to with the screenshots, and the messages stated what I was saying. It didn't, you didn't see anywhere in the messages me attacking anybody, as he said. So that was a lie. And as soon as he reads the messages, he calms down and is like, oh yeah, okay. So exactly. So it was just lie after lie. And then to say I was lying, what do I have to lie about? What do I have to lie about if I've been respectful to brothers since the time that I've met them? So back to the topic, he said to show us the new moon, or show him the new moon being a working day. Okay, not a problem. So Chief said the gloves are off. I'm bringing the guns out. Let's damn the gloves. Let's bring some of the guns out and let's see Israelites working on the new moon, right? So he said, let's see it.
Get the precept that you wanted to bring out.
Let's go to it. Proof that the Israelites can work the first day of the month, aside from the holy feast days the Most High gave us in Leviticus 23. So Exodus 40:2 and verse 33. The Lord commanded Moses to build the tabernacle. Verse 33 calls Moses' physical labors work. right? Quote unquote work, right? Now, knowing knowing their stances, we already know they're going to say, well, Levites are allowed to do temple work. Levites are allowed to do certain works on the Sabbath, this, that, and the third, right? But I just wanted to bring this scripture out because it says verbatim work. He asked me to show Israelites working on the new moon. I am going to present that. I'm going to present multiple scriptures on it. I'm just going to present everything that they asked for. And I want to see what excuses they would use to fit their stance. Because as I said, that whole quote unquote debate was equivalent to us pulling up, bouncing out of a car, shooting at them ducking, us driving off and missing, and them being like, yeah, them niggas got what they deserve. Them niggas, oh, they didn't hit shit, this, that, and the third. That was the equivalent of that. They never actually brought out anything to counter our argument. So to call it a win, a flawless victory, this, that, and the third, really the whole debate was just arguing and brothers talking over us. That I don't see how anybody sees it any other way, right? But let's go ahead. I'm just being honest. Let's look at Exodus 40 and let's see, because that's not the only scripture. And like I said, I'm going to already get that excuse out the way. Well, Levites are allowed to do temple work, this, that, and the third. Okay, you just told me to just show you Israelites working on the new moon, since it's not a working day. It's not a part of the working days, right? So Exodus 40:2. On the first day of the first month, right, the new moon, shalt thou set up the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation, right? So the Lord told Moses to do this, right? Now, brothers can say, yeah, the Lord commanded them to do this. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. But the same way, right? We look at and we understand the creation, which we know is I don't want to say it's not the word, it's not analogy, it's like metaphor, right? We know that it's not the creation wasn't literal. It wasn't a literal 7 days, right? But Exodus is going to confirm what I'm saying, that you are supposed to keep the instructional integrity of that week or that 7 days that the Lord kept, right? So the same way that the Lord had his angels doing his creation on those first 6 days is the same exact thing that you can apply. The angels work. The Lord told the angels to work on those first 6 days. The Lord right here is telling Moses to work on this first day of the month, right? On the first day of the month, shalt thou set up the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation, and thou shalt put therein the ark of the testimony and cover the ark with the veil, right? Now, I said verse 2 and verse 33. This is just going to be talking about all the work that Moses did on this first day, on this new moon, right? Moses being a Levite, right? Verse 33. And he reared up the court round about the tabernacle and the altar and set up the hanging of the court gate. So Moses finished the work. So that's just one, right? You still use the excuse if they want, Levites are allowed to do work. Okay, you just asked me to show you Israelites working on the Sabbath. Not a problem, right? Because it's, or not a Sabbath, the Israelites working on the new moon, right? Their Sabbath, right? So this would be Israelites working on their Sabbath, on their Shabbat, right? But you're not supposed to do any work on the Shabbat, right? So this is one example, right? Let's go to the next. Cool. That was a weak point that they might say, oh, that was a weak point. Blah, blah, blah. Cool. Let's just keep going, right? Damn the semantics. Deuteronomy 1:3, right? The 40th year in the 11th month, Israel is commanded to travel to other lands on the first day of the month, new moon, after already receiving the commandment to stay in their tents on the seventh day and not leave in Exodus 12. This would be contradicting, right? Now, yes, we do know and we do see in scriptures where Israelites would travel to Jerusalem to go there, make their sacrifices, or go to Jerusalem on the Sabbath and this, that, and the third, right? But let's just look at some logic here, right? And let's go and read it first. Because logic right, has to be applied in every way, shape, and form. Logic has to be applied, right? You can't just read the Bible without using logic, right? So I want to add a couple points as far as the logic behind these things, right? But let's keep going into it. Deuteronomy 1 and 3. And it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moses spake unto the children of Israel according unto all that the Lord had given him in commandment unto them. Right. So in the 40th day, in the 40th year, and in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, Moses had spoke to the children of Israel. And where is he telling them to go? Right. Verse 5. On this side Jordan, in the land of Moab, began Moses to declare this law, saying, the Lord our God spake unto us in Horeb, saying, ye have dwelt long enough in this mount. Turn you, and take your journey, and go to the mount of the Amorites, and unto all the places nigh thereunto, in the plain, in the hills, and in the vale, and in the south, and by the sea, to the land of the Canaanites, and unto Lebanon, unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Right. So right here, the Lord is telling the Israelites to go into the land of the Amorites, go into the land of the Canaanites. This is before they even enter or have possession of the land. This is before they have possession of the land of Israel, right? So the excuse of, well, we always went into Jerusalem on our Sabbath. This is before we even have possession of the land. And right here, we are getting ready to journey, right? We're getting ready to leave our tents, leave our houses, leaving where we're dwelling, right? To go and walk and go to this land that's getting ready to be ours, right? We're getting ready to go to this land on this day. We're not even inhabiting this land yet to even use that excuse. Oh, we always go to Jerusalem on the Sabbath, right? So on the new moon on this year, right? This is about what, like 40 years after that they received the law on how to conduct themselves on the Sabbath. This is way after that, and they're still leaving on the new moon. They're leaving on what would be lunar Sabbatarians Sabbath. They're taking journeys. You think they're just leaving their animals behind too, right? Now we're going into the sabbatical law, the fact that your animals are supposed to be resting on the Sabbath, right? So are they breaking the Sabbath, right? Are they breaking the Sabbath now? Is there you guys see the connection? Are they breaking the Sabbath now, whether they're walking or having their animals do physical work? Are they now breaking the Sabbath, or is the new moon considered a working day? Mind you, this isn't the 7th month. This isn't any of the holy feast day, any months that the holy feast days land in for the new moon. So this is a regular new moon. This is a regular day, right? They're not even feasting on this day. They're not even feasting on this day. So it's either one of the two is wrong, right? They're either breaking the Sabbath, even though the Lord told them to, because they're not allowing their animals to rest, or the new moon is a working day. It's just that simple, right? Any other thing that you try to do or say opposite of this is just trying to fit your own narrative, because the whole thing about the lunar Sabbath ideology is everything has to be forced to fit the narrative. And I'm saying that respectfully, because the logical stance behind it does not add up. It's just plain and simple. It does not add up. It does not add up, right? So we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Ezra 7 and 9. Ezra travels from Babylon to Jerusalem on the first day of the month, right? That's going to follow the same structure of what I just said. According to sabbatical law, you're supposed to stay home. And if he traveled by animal, because we have to understand, I'm just going to add logic into this, right? It would be insane to think that the Israelites walked everywhere they went and never use animal as a form of transportation. Yes, it might not blatantly say it, right? But we always had, just like when we left out the Exodus, we traveled with our animals, right? We still went on foot, but we traveled with our animals. It just would be illogical to think every single time the Israelites traveled throughout history, they just walked. Because you have to understand, they are walking damn near countries distances. Like if I was to just put it in a modern day perspective, the distances they were walking would be like from Canada to Mexico, right? It would be insane to think that they were getting to the places as fast as they were, right? Not even incorporating the fact that you have to sleep, you have to eat. It would be crazy to think that they're just walking everywhere every single time. So if we're using the logic that, okay, maybe they were traveling by animal, right? It would still break the Levitical law of Exodus 20 and 10 and Deuteronomy 5, 12 through 14 about you not letting your animals, your cattle, or your maidservants, or anybody laboring, or even the people that are inhabiting, inside your lot or your land with you, right? It would break that law, right? So Ezra is traveling from Babylon to Jerusalem on the first day of the month, right? Now, why is he doing this? We're going to get into that. We're definitely going to get into that, right? We already, I don't even need to read that because it's going to, the thing I'm going to bring out is going to tie into that, right? But let me go to Exodus 20 and 10, right? Exodus. And remember, sorry. Remember, he just said, show me the new moon being a working day, i.e., show me people working on the new moon or doing things on the new moon, right? Walking from one country to another, is that not work? Is that not laborious to do, right? Whether the Lord told you or not, why don't we see why do we see less cases of the Lord telling us to do things on the actual seventh day Sabbath, on the actual Shabbat versus the new moon, right? Why do we see those things? Why do we see that, right? Why is it less likely for you to see the Lord just being like, yeah, on this seventh day Sabbath, the day that you're supposed to stay in your tent? Actually, we're gonna go to that, right? Why is he telling us to do things rather more on the new moon or travel more on the new moon than to just be traveling on the day that we're actually supposed to be resting? If it's not a working day, right? Where is it at? Let no man leave his tent. Mm, this is a gather, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, it shall be none. Okay. And I'm just looking for the one that says, "Let no man leave his tent, or let him stay in his place." That's what I meant to say. My bad, y'all. Now, see, y'all can say he didn't have this one ready. That's cool. No, I'm just looking. I'm just messing. I'm just playing around, man. Hold on. 'Cause I don't want to be looking forever, man. My bad, man. Let every man stay in his place. All right. Okay, so it's verse 29. Oh, looking at it the whole time. My bad, y'all. Look, Exodus 16 and 28 to 29. And the Lord said unto Moses, how long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the sixth day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place, and let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. So we see people going to go, do the good works on the Sabbath, right? Going to teach the law, teach your people. That's fine, right? Because we seen Christ doing stuff like that, right? From what I remember. But as far as people working, doing laborious works, that's less likely to see, right? Every man is supposed to stay in his place on the seventh day, right? But we see on their Sabbath, right, which is the new moon, right, their Shabbat, their, even though they're going to say it's their first day, they treat it as it's their seventh day Sabbath, because to them those words are the same exact thing, right? They treat their new moon as a seventh day Sabbath. They don't buy or sell, right? They don't light flames on that day, right? They don't do any work on that day, right? So why do we see people doing laborious works and traveling on that day that's supposed to be your Sabbath? Why do we see that? I know, because it's a working day, right? Now, it's a day that you're supposed to go make sacrifices. Uh, uh, and then that's the thing, like brothers are like, oh, well, you got to sacrifice on that day. So you're telling me I can't go sacrifice on that day and then go finish the rest of my works? I can't do that. You have to prove that. But that's where we're going. Oh, yeah, Exodus 20 and 10. Exodus 20 and 10. And I'm trying to get through this as fast as possible, you guys. It might not be things that I can get to in time because I am on a time crunch, but I want to get through as much as I can, right? Exodus 20 and 10. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy maidservant, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. So even the people that are within your gates, right? Not supposed to do any work on the Sabbath, right? Not even your servants, right? Whether they're heathens or not. Not even your servants are supposed to do that. Which that's we're going to get into that, right? So, like I was saying, if we're using the logic that these people weren't just traveling uh, 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 by foot everywhere, right? So, watch this. Where would ancient Babylon be? Oh, that. Oh, be today. 55 miles from Baghdad, modern day Iraq. Modern day Iraq. Let's look at Iraq. Iraq is over here. So this is where ancient Babylon would have been. You're telling me that these distances, brothers was just walking at all times when they have animals that they can ride, chariots that they can ride, they have means of transportation. You're telling me that they're just walking at all times? Like let's just be realistic and let's just be logical, right? So using that logic, if they weren't walking at all times, let's say they were using their animals or their means of transportation, you have to feed that animal, the animal has to rest, you'd have to buy it food, right? But regardless, you taking that animal with you or going by animal, traveling by animal will break your sabbatical law, right? It's all laborious work. It's a labor to even walk from Iraq to Israel, nigga. What? It's all laborious work. Now, brother can say, okay, this is semantics, this, that, and the third. That's cool. Let's get into more of the scriptures, right? Like I said, I'm on a time crunch, right? Ezra's 5 and 53 to 57. The Israelites paid Tyre and Sidon to transport materials to them on the first day of the month, though the temple wasn't built. You can't buy or sell on the Sabbath. Then on the first of the second month, the priests, Levites, and the rest of the Jews built the temple, demonstrating that people outside of the Levites were building and doing temple work on the new moon, which is the Sabbath, according to lunar Sabbath keepers, right? So I'm going to read it in I'm going to read it as it is in a KJV. Then I'm going to read it more in like a layman's terms in a GNTA, right? So we can get clarity on what's going on. This relates back to that Ezra scripture, right? Now, he said the gloves was off, right? Okay. Sure. Take them off then. Take the gloves off and bring the choppers out. We know Ruben, right? I'm Lil Ruby, disrespecting Reuben's war tactics. You know, even though Reuben, people don't credit Reuben enough for being the excellency of his father's dignity and strength, right? Even though people try to make it seem, oh, Reuben is just super uncontrollable, this, that, and the third. Yeah, but there's a problem there. There's a problem there. Jacob also said that Reuben was his most dignified and strongest son. So where's the balance with that? I'm either super emotional and emotionally unkept, and I can't control my emotions, but at the same time, my father said that I am the most dignified out of all my brethren. I'm the strongest out of all my brethren. But I guess I'm just the wildest and the most emotionally unstable, because that's just what that breakdown means, right? Brothers like to throw that around, right? But where does the two conflate? Like, where do you compare the two, right? I'm either super emotional and undignified, or I'm the most dignified out of all my brethren. We got to remember, Reuben's the one that stopped all his brethren from killing Joseph. So I have to have some form of dignity or sense, right? But then, and let's not even talk about the wars, because Reuben was the only one that didn't get conquered in totality. Reuben put up the best fight, even over the Levites. So that's either here nor there. But let's just, I just like to throw that in there, right? Let's get let's see, right? Something I want to read in here too. Right. I think this was one of the parts I want to start at too. First Ezra 5, and let's read verse 44. And certain of the chief of their families, when they came to the temple of God that is in Jerusalem, vowed to set up the house again in his own place, according to their ability, right? And to give into the holy treasury of the works 1,000 pounds of gold, 5,000 of silver, and 100 priestly vestments. And so dwelt the priests and the Levites and the people in Jerusalem and in the country, the singers also and the porters, and all Israel in their villages. So all Israel, right? Let's give context, right? Jeremiah, if I remember correctly, it was Jeremiah. Jeremiah had told uh, Cyrus, the king of Persia, what the Lord had told him to pretty much go and let the children of Israel, the Jews, right, go back to Jerusalem to rebuild our temple, which the Babylonians had previously destroyed. Now, the king of Persia and the Medes, they had taken captivity of the Jews once they had conquered and defeated Babylon, right? But when we look at history, right, the Medo-Persian Empire, or the Medo-Persian Empire, was not looked at as the most harsh empire that the Israelites went through, right? It was actually looked at as, they try to downplay it, quote unquote, having a little bit of fairness, right? Because they allowed us to go back and rebuild our temple and go back and serve our God. Yes, we did have political disagreements as far as our views and religious rights, but they allowed us to go back and rebuild our temple. So that's what's going on right here, right? Now, okay, I'll just read this too, but I'm getting straight to the point, right? But when the 7th month was at hand, right? So this is talking about, if I remember correctly, Feast of Trumpets, right? When the 7th month was at hand, which the first day of that is a Sabbaton. Say Sabbaton, a rest day. But when the 7th month was at hand, and when the children of Israel were every man in his own place, they came all together with one consent into the open place of the first gate, which is toward the east, right? Put a pinpoint in that, right? Now, I want to get straight to 53, because all that is going into everything that they're talking about. Or I'll read 50, right? Verse 50. And there were gathered unto them out of the other nations of the land, and they erected the altar upon his own place, because all the nations of the land were at enmity with them and oppressed them. And they offered sacrifices according to the time, and burnt offerings to the Lord both morning and evening. So they're already back in the land. They had already erected the altar. The tabernacle was not yet finished yet. The temple was not yet finished, but the altar was already erected, right? So they already had a place for them to go and sacrifice, right? The tabernacle was just not finished yet, right? Verse 51. Also, they held the Feast of Tabernacles as it is commanded in the law and offered sacrifices daily as was meet. And after that, the continual oblations and the sacrifice of the Sabbaths and of the new moons and all holy feasts. So, why am I reading this? To let you know that the Israelites at this time were keeping the law. They were trying to keep the law to the best of their abilities. They weren't sinning for doing what they were doing, right? They were doing what the Most High essentially told them to do, right? Verse 53. And all they that had made any vow to God began to offer sacrifices to God from the first day of the 7th month, although the temple was of the Lord was not yet built. And they gave unto the masons and carpenters money, meat, and drink with cheerfulness. So on this first day of this 2nd month, which would have been, if I remember correctly, that is the Feast of Trumpets, right? Let's just double check. Let's just double check. I'm gonna go to Leviticus real quick. I don't want to say Feast of Tabernacles because I'm pretty sure it's the Feast of Trumpets. My bad. I get those words conflated. So I just want to be sure. I want to leave no room to play games with this. You know what I'm saying? Where is it at, Bruce? Yep, Feast of Trumpets, Leviticus 23. And the Lord spake unto Moses, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets and holy convocation. All right. Let's see what the word there is for Sabbath. If it's Sabbaton or if it's Shabbat, 7th day weekly Sabbath, right? Let's see what word there that is. Leviticus 23 and 24. Verse 25 also says, ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall do an offering made by fire unto the Lord. The word here is Sabbaton. You're going to have a Sabbaton, right? Not Shabbat, right? Now, see, Sabbaton. Now, why I say not Shabbat, and you know how brothers like, oh, well, look, it's the same thing. Well, okay, let me just read verse 38 again, or verse 37. Leviticus 23 and verse 37 to 38. These are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, right? These are your separate feasts, your holy separate feasts, to offering an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering and a meat offering, a sacrifice and a drink offering and drink offerings, everything upon his day. Beside the Sabbaths, right? Let's see what word that is for beside the Sabbaths. Is it going to be Sabbatons, right? Or is it going to be Shabbat? Let's see. Besides the Shabbat, right? So beside your 7th day weekly Sabbaths, right? The first definition, Sabbath, the 7th day of the week, right? So these are the feasts you're going to have besides those weekly Sabbaths that you have, right? The word there is not Sabbaton, right? That's what he was saying. These are separate feast days. These are separate Sabbaths, right? These are, and then you have your Shabbat, and then you have your Sabbatons, right? So the whole reason I brought that up is to show that within that same chapter, he shows a difference between the two Sabbaths, the two words, right? But we see them right here on their Sabbaton, right? On lunar Sabbatarians, Sabbaths, Shabbats, right? That they are buying and selling. They are paying for work. They are paying heathens to transport goods to them. So, would they be breaking the Sabbath? Would they be breaking your Shabbat? Let's read it again. And all they that had made any vow to God began to offer sacrifices to God from the first day of the 7th month, although the temple was of the Lord was not yet built. And they gave unto the masons and carpenters money, meat, and drink with cheerfulness. Right? Let's replay back what he said.
You can demonstrate and show me, right? And I want you to demonstrate and show me how the new moon is a working day in most cases, because I'm looking here in Ezekiel 46.
I want you to demonstrate and show me how the new moon is a working day, right? Let's go back to it again. Let's read it again. Verse 53, right? And all they that had made any vow to God began to offer sacrifices to God from the first day of the 7th month, although the temple of the Lord was not yet built. And they gave unto the masons and carpenters money, meat, and drink with cheerfulness. Mind you, some of the masons were Judites, because if you go up in the chapter, it states that some of the masons were Judites, right? So some of the people working on the temple were not Levites, right? So one, they're paying people to work on their Shabbat. Now they're paying people to work on their Shabbat, right? But you're not supposed to buy, sell on the Shabbat. You're not supposed to do any work, right? Verse 55, unto them of Zidon also in Tyre they gave cars, that they should bring cedar trees from Lebanon, which should be brought by floats, the haven of Joppa, according as it was commanded them by Cyrus, king of the Persians. Verse 56, and in the second year and the second month. So now the second year and the second month, this is not a holy day, right? The scripture before that was the Feast of Trumpets, a Sabbaton, right? This is not a Sabbaton or a Shabbat. This is the new moon, right? Which will be lunar Sabbatarian Shabbat. Let's see what they're doing. And in the second year and the second month after his coming to the temple of God at Jerusalem, began Zerubbabel the son of Salathiel and Jesus the son of Josedek and their brethren and the priests and the Levites and all they that were come unto Jerusalem out of the captivity. So all the Jews, not just the Levites, all the Jews that came out of captivity had made their way and went into Jerusalem to go work on the temple on the new moon. But the new moon's not a working day. But the new moon is not a working day, right? Verse 58. Verse 57. And they laid the foundation of the house of God in the first day of the second month, in the second year after they were come to Jewry and Jerusalem. And they appointed the Levites from 20 years old over the works of the Lord. Then stood up Jesus, the son, and his sons and brethren, and Cadmiel his brother, and the sons of Madiabun, with the sons of Joda, the sons of Eliadun, with their sons and brethren, all Levites with one accord, setters forward of the business, laboring to advance the works in the house of God. So the workmen built the temple of the Lord, right? So all of the Levites took part in building the temple, but all of the Jews in the collective had went to help build the temple on those new moons. So yes, when it's saying all the Levites, some people might be like, oh, see, it's only all Levites. That's not what it's saying, because it wouldn't contradict itself in the verses above, saying that all of Jerusalem, all of the Jews went to Jerusalem to go help build the temple. We have to use logic. Why would the Judites, Benjamites, and the Levites, right? Why would the Judites and the Benjamites leave from Babylon to go to Jerusalem to just watch one tribe do the building? You might as well have stayed back, nigga. You might as well have stayed back. What was the point of you coming if this is only the Levites doing the work, right? So let's read it in the G&T. And not just the G&T, the RSV is going to say the same thing. The NRSVUE is going to say the same thing. They're all going to say the same thing. They're all going to say the same thing. But I'm going to go to the GNTA, right? GNT is in very layman's terms. Does the GNT always get everything correct? No. Just like how the KJV has some mistranslations, right? So when brothers play that game, like he played with, like Ariella played with the Amos 8 and 5, which we're going to get into, that Gabar brought out, and he was like, hey, I'm not going to accept that translation. There's mistranslations in the KJV. So when it doesn't fit somebody's narrative, even though Sakari is not KJV only is. I used to be in it. We're not KJV onlyists, or we weren't KJV onlyists. You can't play that game just to fit your narrative, right? Because the KJV has mistranslations as well, right? Let's read it in the GNT. Let me see. Let's start at verse 56. So in the second month of the year, after they came back to the site of the temple in Jerusalem, they started the work and began laying the foundation. Zerubbabel, Joshua, and the rest of the Jewish people. So it wasn't just Levites and the rest of the Jewish people, the priests and the Levites. In fact, all the exiles who had come back to Jerusalem joined in the work. The Levites, 20 years of age and older, were put in charge of rebuilding the temple of the Lord. They were put in charge of rebuilding it, right? They were put to oversee what was going on, right? The Levite Jeshua and his sons and relatives, his brother Cadmiel, the sons of Jeshua and Madabun, the sons of Joda, son of Eliadun, and all their sons and relatives. In fact, all the Levites joined together to take charge of the rebuilding of the temple. So when it says all the Levites, that's all it's saying is all of the Levites came to one consensus to join together in helping rebuild the temple. They were overseeing the matters, right? Why? Because they're the ones that are allowed to oversee how the temple is done. They follow the same structure of how Moses did it, right? That doesn't mean that nobody else was doing the work, right? While the workers were building the temple of the Lord, the priests in their robes took it. So while the workers, right, the rest of the Jews, right, and some of the Levites were building the temple of the Lord, the priests in their robes took their places with trumpets and other musical instruments in their hands, and the Levites of the clan of Asaph stood there with cymbals, right? So if that doesn't prove that the new moon, because this wasn't the Feast of Trumpets. This was the second year after that. This was the second year after that in the second month, right? There was no holy day there. If that doesn't prove that the new moon is a working day, and they were commanded by the Most High to go and do this, I don't know what else to say, right? I don't know what else to say. I would love to see the game that's played with that. I would love to, honestly, right? The verses listed above would directly contradict the Most High's original structure / instruction on how the Sabbath is supposed to be kept, proving that the new moon is emphatically a part of the working days and is not to be treated as the seventh-day Sabbath, Shabbat, outside of Leviticus 23, where you're commanded to do certain ones, right? Now, how do we know that the new moon is a working day? Because in Exodus 20, where he reminds us of the Sabbath, he tells us to keep the same structural integrity, the same weekly structural integrity. He tells us to keep it. Let's go to it, right? Exodus 20. And we have to ask ourselves, like I was saying, everything is about logic, you know? Like my mother loves to say, everything has to make sense, bro. Everything. Hermeneutics. Everything has to make sense logically, right? There is no logic. The same way I asked the brother and he went around the question. Show me where you start your weekly count in the Bible after, right? He told me to show him and demonstrate the new moon being a working day or Israelites working on the new moon, right? I just did that. Now they have to show where the Lord tells you to start your weekly count, your working day count after the new moon. They have to blatantly show that in the scriptures, and I'm going to tell you it's nowhere in there. It's not there, right? So brothers making it seem like brothers are just dumbasses. They don't understand this, that, and the third. It's all a coping mechanism of the fact that brothers can't demonstrate their own doctrine in the Bible. So we're going to go to Ezekiel. We're going to go to Amos. We're going to show what those scriptures are about, right? Exodus 20 and 10. But the seventh day is look, verse 9. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. Remember, Moses worked, on the first day. Ezra technically left his home and traveled on the first day. We just seen in Ezra, the Jews outside of the Levites worked on the first day of the second month. They're all working on their 6 working days. Verse 10, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. What would be the point of the Lord reiterating verse 11 if he did not want you to keep the same structural integrity that him and his angels kept during creation? For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them. And all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. It'd be oxymoronic as hell for the Lord to even reiterate the fact that he worked 6 days and rested on the seventh if he didn't want you to keep the same structural integrity of your work week and your Sabbath day. It would be completely dumbfounding for him to be like, I kept 6 working days and then I rested on the seventh day. But you're going to have your first new moon, right? You're going to have your first day, you're going to have your new moon, and then you're going to count after that 6 working days after that, and then add a seventh day. That's 8 days, bro. I don't understand how brother's saying it's not 8 days. 1 plus 6 plus 1 equals 8. Brothers were saying, oh, he's just rambling. And you had the brother going like this. That's all diversion tactics, because he himself, it went over his head that's 8 days. If the Lord gave you 7 days of I'm sorry, I went like that. If the Lord see, it got me flustered. If the Lord gave you 7 days of a week and you add an extra one, it's 8 days, bro. I can pull up a calendar right now and go by their count and demonstrate why it's 8 days, right? And it's as simple as this. If you do their count, let's say that the new moon started on Monday, right? Monday night. Let's say your new moon or your Sabbath started on Monday night. How they operate, or lunar Sabbatarians operate, is 7 days from that, the Sabbath is going to be Monday night again, which is completely false. 7 days from Monday night would be Sunday night. It would not be Monday night. But because they start their count after, let's just demonstrate it. Let's just demonstrate it. Go to a calendar. We're just retarded. We just can't. I don't want to get flagged by YouTube. We're just slow. We just don't understand. Brothers are just so much more intelligent. They they got the whole breakdown to everything in the universe. And whenever somebody humbly goes against their doctrine, it's just straight insults from there, and it's all out the window. It's you're. Let's just, okay. If I'm slow, or I'm this, that, or the third, cool. I'm not here for the insults game and all this, that, and the third, bro. That's trash, bro. We're being just real. That's trash. Let's say that their Sabbath started Monday night to Sunday night. I said Monday night, Sunday night. Monday night, Tuesday night. That's 1 day. Tuesday night to Wednesday night, 2 days. Wednesday night to Thursday night, 3 days. Thursday night to Friday night, 4 days. Friday night to Saturday night, 5 days. Saturday night to Sunday night, 6 days. Sunday night to Monday night, day 7. It starts back on day 7. Your Sabbath would start back on Sunday night. It would start back Sunday night. That's 7 days. So let's do it by their count. New moon, Monday night to Sunday night, right? Because they go Monday to if it's on Monday, it's Monday to Monday. If it's Tuesday, it's Tuesday to Tuesday, right? And then they have to explain how the hell in the scriptures does the we're in history and we're in the scriptures, does the new moon move forward a day every month? That's something else that can't be answered. But okay, let's do their count. Monday night to Tuesday night. Day one. Tuesday night to Wednesday night. Day two. Wednesday night, Thursday night. Day three. Thursday night, Friday night. Day four. Friday night, Saturday night. Day five. Saturday night to Sunday night. Day six. Sunday night to Monday night. Day seven, right? Monday night to Tuesday night again. 8 days. Because they don't start that Sabbath from Sunday night to Monday night. You start back again on Monday night. That's 8 days. I'm not making that up. I'm not understanding. It's 8 days. It's simple rudimentary math. Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? So I demonstrated what they wanted with that. Let's go into these counter argumentative points, man. Amos 8 and 5. Now, Amos 8 and 5 is actually referencing the Sabbath/sabbatical year, which takes place every 7 years, where the land is left unharvested so that the poor of Israel could eat, and the beasts of the land could eat whatever was left. This is almost as an act of charity to the Lord and the beast from the Lord. We're going to reference Exodus 23 and 11 and Leviticus 25, verse 1 through 8. Verse 8 can also be compared to the count of Pentecost, which is 50 days. Right? And why I say that is because it's just going to show how, as insulting as brothers are, even brothers can make mistakes. Like, don't get me wrong, Chief, Ariala, the brothers at Sakari, they're very intelligent brothers, man. I enjoyed my time with them. I don't really got too much bad to say about those brothers, man. So, like, for me to get attacked or brothers to attack me as if, I seen that happen a lot. As soon as brothers are not in agreement with certain things, even if it's respectful, it's like the brother is treated as an opponent or an enemy. And as much as brothers make brothers seem like they're not threats or this, that, and the third, well, the attitudes that are displayed shows that you are threatened. If brothers wasn't a threat or wasn't seen as something that's quote unquote powerful, as Chief was trying to downplay me, my first year coming into Sakari, me and shout out to my brother Kashab. We were getting word that Chief was like, yeah, like, I want them brothers teaching as fast as possible. He was saying he liked how we taught. He thought we were astute. So how do I go from being astute to being subpar, a dumbass, this, that, and the third, all because I had a respectful disagreement with you? That shows your character as a man, man. You know what I'm saying? But again, this is not about that. I just have to address these things that I'm more humble than what it had looked. We have to understand, we didn't even go to a non-biased platform. It was almost like a setup. I went to a platform which I already knew what was going to happen. I went in knowing what was going to happen. I took the bait, and I took the bait on purpose, and I knew what was going to happen. I knew it was going to be very one-sided. Everybody that was in the comments were all Sakari or Sakari supporters. If we're being blatantly honest, and brothers can go look at those tapes. I'm getting called names, this, that, and the third, threats, this, that, and the third. Even to the point where the brother, if he didn't have any animosity or see me as a threat or secret animosity, like I said, you wouldn't have ignored the brother Ilawan when he messaged you. And then as soon as you seen it was about the new moon, you left him on red after. Because you responded before that, then you left him on red. Then you made a comment saying that you had brothers that were 5'8" around my height that wanted to see me or get down with me, and nothing about fighting was even brought up. I'm telling you, you guys have to examine the matter of who you're really calling cocky, prideful, and who's really doing what. Because there's a lot of things I could have said, even to the fact when brothers were bringing up, oh, the brothers' wives and this, that. Brothers don't understand. Things can get dangerous, man. And we love, I love my people. We need to be peaceful and everything. But brothers aren't going to just sit back and let things be one-sided and let brothers be made out to look like there's something that they're not when we didn't even attack anybody, man. That's what I didn't respect about the whole situation. I lost a lot of respect for brothers in that camp. I lost a lot of respect, and and the brothers, Ariella, I reached out to him. I reached out to a few other brothers, in regards to, hey man, this went this way, and I still want us to be good at the end of the day. I put my pride to the side to reach out first, as angry as I was. I'm like, this we got a bigger message to be pushing and something bigger coming out. And I just, I didn't respect a lot of what was going on because it looked very one-sided. And then when you have crowds and minions behind you, it's easy to look like you're the one in the right. And the scriptures talk about that. A lot of brothers don't understand that they broke the law of God. They broke the law of God. A lot of brothers was commenting, doing this, that, and the third. They don't understand you broke Leviticus 19, man. A lot of brothers took favor in the great, right? And they looked at the poor, right? And they judged unrighteously, because no different than I told brothers. I also, reached out to my brothers in the SF camp that I used to be with, and we reconciled on things. I was telling them the same thing. Brothers have to understand in these camps, no matter who it is. And that's what I was telling Chief. He didn't really address that. I've always spoke up in the camp, regardless if it was a higher up or not. I show no favoritism. I show no respect to a person's truly, as the law says. I respect authority because, you made the comment about dropping out, this, that, and the third. It wasn't even about that, man. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to get into that. But brothers have to know how to correct their higher ups when they're going off, just as well as they'll correct somebody who's not seen as somebody as great in the truth, because that is the law of God. Chief isn't God. Chief isn't Yahweh. You have to respect Yahweh over you respect anybody. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just being real, right? Now, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. It was just simply about you got brothers that 5'8" wanted to see me, man. That was uncalled for, man. I don't mind you. I don't turn nothing down. I ain't turning nothing down. But I would love to keep the peace. But if brothers didn't see me as a threat, or see me as something that's a threat to their infrastructure, even though I'm being respectful about things, how would somebody, you did a 3-hour video, how did you already have somebody waiting to ready to fight me? And you're just coming to the knowledge of what's been happening. That exposed your hand right there. So that means it's already been chattering and animosity, and you're looking at me a certain way before even addressing me. He never reached out to me and said anything about that. But I can say a lot of things about brothers, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Because I'm a man at the end of the day, and I address things as a man at the end of the day. So I said these brothers can have the internet, this, that, and the third. When I went and reconciled with the brothers in SF, we reconciled face to face, and I have respect for them brothers, man. I have respect for them brothers, man. Shout out to Zach, shout out Yaya, shout out Kashab, Hazal, shout out all them brothers, man, over there. Zach, shout out them brothers, man. Because it takes a man to admit when you're wrong. I had to admit on my side and take accountability for my side. It takes a man to admit you're wrong, right? But that's enough of that. Let's get into Amos. You know what I'm saying? Amos 8 and 5. Let's just open up the full chapter. And let's get into it, right? Amos 8 and 5. Or actually, let's just start at the top. This is the one that he didn't want to address, Ariella, right? Thus hath the Lord God showed unto me, and behold, a basket of summer fruit. And he said, Amos, what seest thou? And I said, a basket of summer fruit. Then said the Lord unto me, the end is come upon my people of Israel. I will not again press by them any more. And the songs of the temple shall be howlings in that day, saith the Lord God. There shall be many dead bodies in every place. They shall cast them forth with silence. Hear this, O ye that swallow up the needy, even to make the poor of the land to fail. So, brothers cannot deny this. This is talking about the sabbatical year because that is the point of the context. He's talking about the greedy merchants, right? The greedy sellers, right? Saying, when will the new moon be gone that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath that we may set forth wheat? Watch this. Making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit. So they use this verse. This is why I say their points are not strong on proving the new moon being the Sabbath, because contextually you have to know what's going on, and it doesn't prove that it's the Sabbath. It only proves to them that it's the Sabbath because they say that the new moon and the Sabbath are juxtaposed to each other in this verse. If that is your best argument, that is a shit argument because there's no history validating the new moon moving forward a day every month, the new moon being on different days. There's no history to it, but you do find tons of history on the new moon, or not the new moon, the Sabbath landing on Friday to Saturday, right? You do find ample amount of history behind that. Even Israelites, an Israelite history on that, right? So we have to understand that the new moon cycle is not perfect, and we'll go into that, right? But the point was to make the ephah small and falsify the balances by deceit, right? So let's go into Leviticus. Leviticus 25. Let's see. Let's see what this is talking about, because it is just talking about the new moon and the Sabbath being one and the same, right? Let me see. Leviticus 25. Let's go to Exodus 23 and 11 first, man. I got to try to wrap this up because I am, like I said, I'm on a time crunch. I ain't even get through half of the information. You know what I'm saying? I might save the Greek information. For part 3. You know what I mean? So what did I say it was? Exodus 23 and 11. Let's see. Exodus 23, let's start at 10 through 11. And 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and shalt gather in the fruits thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard, right? 6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the 7th day thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thine ass may rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the strangers may be refreshed, right? So every 7 years you have the sabbatical year, just like every 7 days you have the Sabbath. These are one in the names of these, right? The sabbatical year is also called the Sabbath, right? So as I had stated before, all they were saying is, when is the Sabbath going to be over? Because you had your new moons where people would do sacrifices, right? And then you had your Sabbath where people are not allowed to buy or sell, right? Or do any work. Now, in the 7th year, the land is supposed to be resting for that whole year. You're not supposed to harvest your crops, right? So the purpose you not harvesting your crops is so that the poor of the land, as it mentioned, they can eat. And so that whatever they leave, the beasts of the field can eat as well, right? What was that one? 25, 1 through 8. And this is going into the same thing, right? Leviticus 25, verse 1 through 8. And the Lord spake unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When you come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. So they're like, man, when is the Sabbath and when the new moon going to be over? Why? Because this is talking about the sabbatical year. It's not saying the new moon is the Sabbath. 6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard, and gather in the fruit thereof. Right? So those 6 years you're going to sow your field, you're going to gather in the fruit. But in the 7th year shall be the Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field, so don't start planting stuff, nor prune thy vineyard, right? Thou shalt that which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest, thou shalt not reap. If it grows on its own, whatever food and things grow at that time, don't reap it. Don't pick it up. Why? Neither gather the grapes of thy vineyard, of thy vine undressed, for it is a year of rest unto the Lord. And the Sabbath of the Lord shall be meat the Sabbath of the land shall be meat for you. So people who can't afford food regularly during these times, they are going to be able to eat. Now, when you think about it, what does this take away? Because there's also a scripture that goes into if your neighbor steals from you, right? I think steals like food from you, that you should let him keep it, right? This helps those people. That's what Amos 8 and 5 is about. It's about the sabbatical year. This helps those people, man. Oh, I don't gotta steal food or this, that, and the third. The Lord, he didn't provide it. He provided. All praise to the Most High, right? This is what's going on. And the Sabbath of the land shall be meat for you, for thee, and for thy servant, and for thy maid, and for thy hired servant, and for thy stranger that sojourneth with thee. And for thy cattle, and for the beasts that are in thy land, shall all the increase thereof be meat. And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years. 7 times 7 years. The same thing it says for Pentecost, right? I'm talking about in the same structure. 7 times 7, right? And we know that's 49. And the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years, right? Now, where is that at? I'm trying to look for that ephah, man. Let me go and see where it's at. Boom. Right? The verse is criticizing the greedy. So Amos 8 and 5, this is what it's talking about. The verse is criticizing the greedy merchants who are exploiting the poor through dishonest measures and are impatient to resume their business, which breaks the Most High's law in Leviticus 19 and 35. Proverbs 28 and 8, Proverbs 11 and 1, Proverbs 20 and 23, and Leviticus 15 through 17. Right? So let's go back to Leviticus 25, 15 through 17. Let's go back and see. Right? Because now it's talking about a jubilee, right? Now it's talking about the year of jubilee, right? But look what it says, verse 15 through 17. Let's start at verse 14. And if thou shalt sell unto thy neighbor, or buy aught of thy neighbor's hand, ye shall not oppress one another. According to the number of years after the jubilee, thou shalt buy of thy neighbor, and according unto the number of years of the fruits he shall sell unto thee. According to the multitude of years, thou shalt increase the price thereof, and according to the fewness of years, thou shalt diminish the price thereof. Shall diminish the price of it. For according to the number of years of the fruits doth he sell unto thee. Ye shall not therefore oppress one another, but thou shalt fear the Lord thy God, for I am the Lord your God. Right? So, just as they were saying in Amos 8 and 5, right? We're going to go into more scripture to show that, right? Saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may shell corn, and the Sabbath that we may set forth wheat? So when will the new moon be gone that we shall sell corn? Ends off the sentence right there. And the Sabbath, bro. When is the Sabbath going to be going, bro? So we can continue back to doing what we're doing. That we may sell forth wheat, making the ephah small, ephah being weight, making the weight small, and the shekel great. And the amount that you pay for it great. So I'm gonna give you a small amount and I'm gonna charge you and I'm gonna tax you for it. I'm gonna tax you a lot of money. And falsifying the balances by deceit. That is the context of this. This scripture is not saying that the new moon is the Sabbath. It's not saying that, right? Now, what was the other one? 19 and 35. Ah, man, let's see what he said in 19. Let's see if the direct words match, man. Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment, in meteor, in weight, or in measure. So they're obviously breaking the law, right? These people, that is the context. These brothers are breaking the law. Proverbs 28 and 8. Salakia. Now watch this. Proverbs 28 and 8. He that by usury and unjust gain increases his substance, he shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. So the Lord is gonna pity the poor. He that increases his substance by unjust ways, by usury, right? By unjust gain, you're only going to gather it back for those poor people. So the Lord was going to deal with those people. That was the whole point of what they were asking. They weren't saying that the new moon and Sabbath were the same thing, right? And let's just look, right? Amos 8 and 5 talking about the sabbatical year. Let's see if I'm just making this up. Yes, most biblical scholars interpret Amos 8 and 5 as referring to the sabbatical year where the Levites were commanded to let their the Israelites were commanded to let their land rest and not harvest crops, essentially criticizing the people for impatiently waiting for the sabbatical year to end, right? So they could resume their exploitive practices and disregard the spirit of the law by cheating the poor. Because what did I just say? And what did the scripture just prove? That the sabbatical year is called the Sabbath. So that's why they're saying, when will the new moon be going and the Sabbath, right? Now, they would like to play a game and be like, oh, well, that's the Jewish man saying that. The Jewish, you can't take everything the white man. It's only the white man saying it, and it's only that when it doesn't fit your narrative, right? Because the white man wears lilies and wears fringes. We wear lilies and wear fringes. The white man, what else could I bring up, right? Because that's one of the main things, right? My bad. It's just picking and choosing, man, right? We wear fringes, we wear tassels. The white man wears fringes, he wears tassels. We take up the sign of the Star of David, quote unquote. The white man takes up the sign of the Star of David, right? And when it's situations like that, is the white man is stealing from us. So you don't think the white man would steal the Sabbath from us? They would steal the understandings of these scriptures to an extent. Like, we can't pick and choose with the scriptures, because it says most biblical scholars, right? Most of them will attest to this. Most of them will attest to this. Scholars, right? Now, in any other debates, we will bring these things up and be like, oh yes, these scholars attest to this meaning this meaning that, right? Why pick and choose with Amos 8 and 5 when we just show scriptures blatantly connecting to that? And most biblical scholars are connecting that to that, right? That's all Amos 8 and 5 is about, bro. Right? Now let's go into Ezekiel 46 and 1. Ezekiel 46 and 1. Ezekiel 46 is future prophecy about the prince, king of Israel. Ooh, had a little, that needs to say but that's cool. Future prophecy of the Like that? Y'all like that, huh? No, I'm just playing. Ezekiel 46 is future prophecy of the prince slash king of Israel making sacrifice to the Most High through a sin offering. The prince and the children of Zadok are the ones that are allowed through the east gate to eat with the Most High on that day. Ezekiel 44, verse 1 through 3, verse 4 through 5. The Most High tells Ezekiel to handle all other sacrifices through the north gate. The Lord told Ezekiel in that day the Most High will be standing in the east gate. That's why no man is allowed to enter other than the priest, which is going to be Christ, right? More than likely, because Isaiah 9 and 6, he's called the governor, the king, the I said the priest, the prince. He's called the governor, the prince, this, that, and the third, right? So he can dine personally with his king, right? And this is why, I attest to the prince being or Christ being called the prince, because in Hebrew, the word prince, right? It also, the definitions also means king as well, right? So we know Christ is called the prince in Isaiah 9 and 6, right? But he is the king of Israel. This is why I think he's being called the prince in Ezekiel, because he's going to dine with his king. Now, the true king of all kings, like Christ is the king of kings, but the true king of all kings is the Most High God, right? He is the ultimate highest power ruler, right? So Christ has a king, and that's the Most High God. And that's why it says his king, i.e., our God, Yahweh. Ezekiel 43 and 7, the Most High had permanently closed the east gate where he would dwell because he doesn't want the children of Israel or the Levites near him because of their trespasses, again, except for the sons of Zadok. Verse 15, who kept the Lord's charge, right? See if I can get through this in the last 15 minutes, right? So, Ezekiel 46, man. And that's why I asked the brother, what is the context of Ezekiel 46? Other than you just, the same way we just showed Amos 8 and 5, not meaning that the new moon is the Sabbath. What is the context of this? Thus saith the Lord God, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open, right? It doesn't mean that these 2 days are the same day. Now, the reason I'm bringing the context is because a brother had asked me, well, what is the purpose of the east and north gate, as Ezekiel mentions? He mentions the east gate and the north gate for sacrifices, 2 different gates to sacrifice. He was like, do you think that has something to do with the Sabbaths and the new moons? I said, okay, let's look at it, right? Let's go to, what did it say? Ezekiel 44 and 1 through 3. Now, I just want to show this because some people might not know this. I'm humbly showing this. Ezekiel 44, verse 1 through 3. Right? Then he brought me back the way of the gate of the outward sanctuary, which looketh toward the east, and it was shut. Then said the Lord unto me, this gate shall be shut, it shall not be opened, and no man shall enter in by it, because the Lord, the God of Israel, hath entered in by it. Therefore it shall be shut. It is for the prince, he shall sit in it to eat bread before the Lord. He shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate, and shall go out by the way of the same. Right? So the Lord right here said that the gate, in this future prophecy, that gate is supposed to be permanently closed until that the prince comes, right? The prince is the only person that's coming through that gate, right? And why? So he can dine before the Lord. He can eat before the Lord, right? So Yahushua is going to eat with his father before the Lord. If Yahushua is emphatically said prince, which I attest to him being, right? He is going to eat with his father, right? It's almost like he's being back and reuniting with his father on these days after making that sacrifice and him being a fleshly vessel again, right? So he's given that opportunity, right? Now, how do we know that the Lord is there? Let's go back. What is it? Verse 4 and 5 as well, right? Then brought he me the way of the north gate before the house. And I looked, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. And I fell upon my face. And the Lord said unto me, Son of man, mark well. So he tells Ezekiel, now let's go to this north gate. I'm gonna be here in this east gate. let's go to this north gate. Son of man, mark well, meaning take notes, mark this, and behold with thine eyes, and hear with thine ears all that I say unto thee concerning all the ordinances of the house of the Lord, and all the laws thereof, and mark well the entering in of the house, with every going forth of the sanctuary. And thou shalt say to the rebellious house, to the rebellious, even to the house of Israel, thus saith the Lord God, O ye house of Israel, let it suffice you of all your abominations, right? So he's getting ready to just basically go into the reason why they are only allowed to go into the north gate, because we committed abominations and we were defiling the east gate. We were defiling where where we were originally basically doing sacrifices, right? So verse, what is it? 7, he's just talking about the abominations. Now let me just read verse 8 for the sake of time. And ye have not kept the charge of mine holy things, but ye have set keepers of my charge in sanctuaries for themselves. Thus saith the Lord God, no stranger of uncircumcised in heart nor uncircumcised in flesh shall enter into my sanctuary, and any stranger that is among the children of Israel. And the Levites that are going away far from me, when Israel went astray, which went astray away from me after their idols, they shall even bear their iniquity. So even the Levites aren't allowed into the east gate in that time, except for the sons of Zadok, right? But let me see, verse 1. And now we're gonna go to verse 40. Chapter 43, verse 1 through 7, for more context, right? Like I said, I'm just trying to get through this because we already been going pretty long, right? Ezekiel 43. After he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh toward the east, and behold, the glory of God of Israel came from the way of the east, and his voice was like a noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. And it was according to the appearance of the vision which I saw, even according to the vision that I saw when I came to destroy the city. And the visions were like the vision that I saw by the river Chabar, and I fell upon my face, right? And the glory of the Lord came into the house by the way of the gate, whose prospect is toward the east. And so the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner court. And behold, the glory of the Lord filled the house. And I heard him speaking unto me out of the house. And the man stood by me. And he said unto me, Son of man, the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever, and my holy name shall the house of Israel no more defile. So the Lord is saying he is going to be dwelling and standing in the east gate. That is why nobody can enter into the east gate except for the sons of Zadok, right? Because he is going to be standing there waiting for the prince. That's why nobody can go into the east gate. This is the whole context behind the east and north gate and what's going on, right? And shall the house of Israel no more defile, neither they nor their kings by their whoredom, nor by the carcasses of their kings in their high places, right? Let me see. Verse 10. Thou son of man, show the house of Israel that they may be ashamed of their iniquities, and let them measure the pattern, right? So let them measure where they're supposed to be going. Let them know that they're supposed to go through this north gate. I don't want you guys by me. You guys are filthy. That's basically what he's saying. You guys are filthy. You guys made too many mistakes in the past. I love y'all, but y'all niggas is messing up, right? So Ezekiel 44, let's go back to 10, 13 through 19, where you see the sons of Zadok. Here you go, man. All right. My little man, where you see the sons of Zadok, 10, 13 through 19. Let me see. Let's just get straight to the point. Verse 13. And they shall not, Ezekiel 44 and 13, and they shall not come near unto me to do the office of a priest unto me, nor to come near to any of my holy things in the most holy place, but they shall bear their shame and their abominations which they have committed. And this is talking about the Levites, right? But the priests, the Levites, the sons of Zadok, so only the Zadokites that kept my charge of the sanctuary when the children of Israel went astray from me, they shall come near to minister unto me. They shall come near to me to minister unto me, and they shall stand before me to offer unto me the fat and the blood, saith the Lord God. They shall enter into my sanctuary, and they shall come near to my table to minister unto me, and they shall keep my charge. So only the Zadokites and the prince are allowed in that area of that east gate. The rest of us got to be in the north gate, man, for all the mistakes we made, man. So this is the context behind Ezekiel 46. It's dealing with how and where and why we're going to keep our and do our sacrifices, how we're going to do them on the Sabbath and on the new moons. It is not saying that the new moon is the Sabbath. Just like Amos 8:5, it's not saying the new moon is the Sabbath, right? Let's get to this one right here, man. 1 Samuel 20:5, man. 1 Samuel 20:5 is speaking on David telling Jonathan that the new moon is tomorrow and that he would usually partake in their feast, but he needed to go hide in the field for 3 days to avoid suspicion from Saul. In 1 Samuel 21:5, David comes out of hiding for 3 days. Now, lunar Sabbatarians say that this is 6 days. They say that the 3 days that he went into hiding was 6 days because of how it's worded. It still doesn't even word it that way, right? So let's go into 1 Samuel. That's why I said, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I can't trust or expect brothers who think that Pentecost, which blatantly tells you that it's 50 days and not 100, understands how to count 3 days. I can't expect brothers who are forcing themselves to think that 3 days, and I'm telling you, hey bro, I'm finna go to Stockton for 3 days, bro. I'll be back. And I ask you, hey bro, how long was I going? Oh, you was going for 6 days. I can't expect. Let's just get it. 1 Samuel 20:5. And David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, that I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even. Unto the third day. If you ask lunar Sabbatarians, they say this is 6 days, right? Because 1 Samuel 21:5. And I'm just going to get through this really fast. Then I'm going to demonstrate the Pentecost thing because it's completely crazy. 1 Samuel 2, what Pentecost means? Pentecost means 50 days. I'm sorry. In the Greek, it means 50 days. 1 Samuel 21:5. And David answered the priest and said unto him, of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days, since I came out. And the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in a manner common. Yeah, though it be sanctified this day in the vessel. So lunar Sabbatarians will say that this is the seventh day. This is the Sabbath, right? Now I'm going to show you a problem and where this falls on their own doctrine. Like they fall on their own sword with this, bro, because they say that David went to hide for 3 days, and then 3 days later he came out, even though he said, I'm going to hide unto 3 days, meaning I'm going to hide for 3 days, then come out. So he came out on the 4th day. It's simple math, right? Like a brother was telling me, he was like 3 + 3 = 6. But brother, he didn't add 3 days. It says he's going to hide unto 3 days. And then he tells the woman, he tells them, I have abstained myself from women for 3 days. Meaning those 3 days that I was hiding and me coming out now it is the 4th day. How the hell is this 6 days? Or how it's no different than I was asking them. How the hell are you saying I'm going to go hide for 3 days, and then you came out on the 7th because an extra 3 days magically passed when I just told you I was going to hide for 3 days? That's like me saying again, hey, I'm going to go to Stockton for 3 days, right? It's like me saying I'm going to go to Stockton and it's Monday, and I say I'm going to go to Stockton for 3 days, right? And I leave on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? And then I come out Thursday, right? I come back Thursday, right? I'm like, hey, let me stay, let me come out and pop back out on Thursday, right? Or actually, I won't even say I come out on Thursday. I come out Wednesday. I come back Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I come back Wednesday, right? You're not going to say, damn, bro, I thought you were going to come back Saturday. Nigga, how? I just told you I was going to be going for 3 days. How am I going to come back Saturday? How did 3 magically turn to 6, right? So let's use their logic against them. This is the 7th day that he came out, right? Which means what? This is their Sabbath, right? Okay. So let's see. Let's see how that logic works. You're not supposed to do what on the Sabbath? Buy or sell, and you're not supposed to do work, servile work. So let's see. Let's keep reading. Verse 6. So the priest gave him hollowed bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken from before the Lord, to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away, right? Mind you, the priest, Exodus tells you the priest makes showbread or hollowed bread the showbread and hollowed bread are the same thing. They make it every single day, right? Quiet. Right? Verse 7. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day. So a man of the servants of Saul, right, an Edomite, Saul being the king, was there that day on this quote unquote 7th day, if we're using their logic, right? Because he had hid for 6 days, right? Detained before the Lord, and his name was Doeg, an Edomite, the chiefest among the herd of the herdmen that belonged to Saul. And David said unto Ahimelech, and is there not here under thine hand, spirit of sword? For I have neither brought my sword nor my weapons unto thee. My weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. So, what you mean to tell me, if this is 6 days, he hid for 6 days and he came out on the 7th day on the Sabbath, why is a Edomite breaking the Sabbatical law under Saul, the king of Israel? Why is he breaking the Sabbath? He just said, I'm here for business. The king told me to do business, servile work on the Sabbath. So if your logic makes sense, lunar Sabbatarians, and this is the 7th day that he came out, you're not supposed to buy, sell, or do any servile work, not your maid servants, your manservants, not your animals. Why is Saul commanding a Edomite, his servant, which will be his manservant, to break the Sabbath? I'll wait. Are we just going to say, oh yeah, go ahead. Look, I already know. Let's just use that excuse. Saul's wicked. Saul's wicked. That would be their strongest excuse. But it doesn't change the fact that 3 days is 3 days. And now you have a problem. Not only are you dealing with the fact that 3 days is 3 days, you have to deal with the fact that the Sabbatical law was being broken and commanded to be broken by Saul, king of Israel. I rest my case on it. We already went over this. The Lord commands you to keep the same weekly structure. He tells you to keep the same weekly structure, not have a new moon and then count 7 days after that, or 6 working days and a 7th day after that. That new moon consists of being within that work week. Attacking the Greek and Roman calendar arguments. We're going to get into this for another time, right? This will be part 2, because understanding something. Look, This is something else that's not understood. Deacon made a video for the lunar Sabbatarians on the Greeks and the Romans and the idolatry, not understanding that we were the Greeks. We were the original Greeks. Shout out to the brothers of AHOS, man. Let me give them a quick shout out real quick, man. Right? Let me give them a quick shout out, man. And why I'm doing this is because you have to. Where they at? Where they at? Where they thing at? You have to look at all manners and all aspects, man. I don't just look at one group of people. I don't just choose favoritism. You have to examine every matter like the scriptures say, man. Now, these powerful brothers, this brother that used to be a former SOT leader of SOT, right? Let me close that off. He goes into the history of the Greeks being us. This brother right here, Ayala, right? He goes into that history. I double checked his history and it concurs. Even historians concur. Y'all go check this video out, man, because I'm going to make a part 2 or part 3 on this, right? It checks out. Lunar Sabbatarians don't understand that as much as we read in Acts who the Helleniste and the Hellenes were, we were the Greeks. The Hellenes and the Helleniste, right? They were a tribe of Danites. They were comprised of Danites and Judites that went up into the Aegean Sea coast, right? Around the time of not just Joshua, Ezekiel, but Noah. They are the founders of not just like the Hellenes, right? Because they're another sect, right? Before we were called Greeks, we weren't called Greeks until the year, I think, 164 BC. We weren't called Greeks until the Romans started calling us Greeks or Graci, right? We called ourselves Hellenes, just like how you see in the New Testament, Helleniste, right? The Greeks followed a structural calendar that came before the Julian calendar, the Greek calendar, right? They followed the system that the ancient Babylonians, right? Not the Babylonians that took over Israel, the ancient Babylonians, the Mesopotamians, right? Now, who was an ancient Mesopotamian? When you look at history, Abraham would have been an ancient Babylonian Mesopotamian, right? The Babylonians followed a 7-week calendar. I mean, a 7-day calendar, right? For their weeks. The Babylonians, as well as the Greeks, as well as a lot of other people, right? When they studied the whole lunisolar system thing like that, right? They knew that the moon is a imperfect cycle, right? It takes 27.3 days for the moon to come back around, but 29 and a half days for the moon to complete its cycle. Telling you what, it is a not perfect cycle, right? So I'll just for the sake of time, because we have an hour and 53 minutes in, man. And like I said, we'll go into a part 3 on this, right? This system that they followed is the same one that Abraham, their forefather Abraham, followed, right? The Egyptians followed a 10-day weekly calendar, right? They had 10 days within their weeks, which is why the Lord, when we got out of Egypt, he reminded us to keep 7 days, because the Egyptians, when you look at the Egyptians historically, they had a 10-day calendar for their weeks. The Babylonians, a 7th-day calendar for their weeks. And on their 7th day, it landed on the Sabbath. I mean, the Sabbath. It was the Sabbath, right? Same thing with the ancient Greeks and the ancient Hellenes, right? And if I'm making this up, if I'm making all this up, what were the ancient Greeks called before, right? You know, because like the AI, you know, the Hellenes, the AI, you know, like, you know, the AI just went against you last time, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. Like I said, you know, the AI is going to bring up 80% to 90% its scholastic findings being a similar thing, what about that 10-20% being opposite? It's going to give you all the things that scholars like you see, like Wikipedia, BBC, all that. We know Wikipedia isn't looked at as a top primary source, but Wikipedia is used even by lunar Sabbatarians. It is used by a lot of people as a source, but they're going to give you all these little links right here. They're giving you the best AI generated sources that they found. These sources aren't AI generated, they're from actual people, but they're giving you the best scholastic sources and compiling it into one answer for you. That's all AI overview is doing, right? So you can just look at all these links. The ancient Greeks were called themselves Hellenes and their land was Hellas. The Romans later called them Greeks. So the Hellenes, right? When we look at the history, the Hellenes, right? I'll just read some of this. The ancient Greeks called themselves the Hellenes, and their land was called Hellas. The Romans later started calling the Hellenes Greeks or Graeci, which means Greeks in their written language, Latin, around the year 168 BC during the conquering of Macedon. Now, the Macedonians, when you look at Alexander and the Maccabees and all this, that, and the third, that time period came 700, 800, 900 years after the Hellenes or the Danites went up into the land of Javan. If you look in the Genesis, Javan was given the Aegean Sea coast, or what we see as Greece, Rome, and all that. Dan and all them, right? Like I said, I'm just giving y'all a couple of little, y'all can look this up, but we're gonna go into it. The sons of Japheth inherited the lands of Asia Minor, the Aegean Sea coast, right? The sea that surrounds Greece and beyond in Genesis 10 and 5, right? You see, they're given, Javan is given that in Genesis 10 and 5, which takes place around 2350 BC. Dan and Judah traded with Javan in the Isles, and some of them end up staying and founded the Greek civilization. Ezekiel 27, 13 through 19. You guys can look into all this. Genesis 9 and 27. Through trade, the Danites, right, or the Danes, they began to dress as the Danes, or the Danans and Dorians and all that, right? They began to dress as the Danes and Anglo-Saxons would over a course of time. Ezekiel 16 and 10 and 14. Joshua 19 and 47, right? The tribe of Dan was having trouble overtaking the territories they were assigned, so they expanded towards Lashem, overtook it. Lashem is the northern region of Israel, right? And they renamed it Dan because Dan would often do that, right? They would often go and rename their lands after themselves. That's why you have Danin, the Dorians, right? That's why you have Scandinavia. You got all these lands that they were taking over, right? This is all gonna go into another deeper thing, man. Right? Danins and the Dorians. Dan began to establish colonies in Greece under the name the Danins between 1500 and 1485. That was around the time that we were going up into these lands, right? So why am I bringing all this up, even though I'm short on time, is to prove that we were going into these Greek lands. We in before Greek adopted their own calendar, that Babylonian calendar, and then the Gezer calendar, all these things, right, were calendars that was basing off of one of another, and they were all kept a seventh-day Sabbath. And what day did they keep that seventh-day Sabbath on? Saturday, right? Deacon brings up Josephus and Philo, right? And he tries to say that Josephus and Philo attested to the fact that they were I think like lunar Sabbatarians. But Josephus and Philo never states that they were lunar Sabbatarians. They never said that the Sabbath moved forward every single day, every month. They never said that. They always said the Sabbath was on a Saturday, Friday to Saturday, right? And I have the sources because Chief said, you gotta come to play ball when you play ball, man. Historians that attest to the Sabbath being on Saturday. Cassius Dio, the Roman historian, and Frontinus, the Roman soldier, right? So we're going to use their own people against them. We're going to use their own people against them if we're just making this up and bullshitting or picking and choosing, right? So let's see. Calling of witness 1. A Roman historian named Cassius Dio, who wrote about the Roman history, gives an account of wars waged between Rome and Judea. In it, he explains the capture of Jerusalem in 63 BC, right? Because you have the storming of Jerusalem, right? It officially ended in 72 AD, right? So it was like 9 years. Even though the temple was destroyed, the official ending of it was like 72 what do you call that? AD, right? But this is the capturing of Jerusalem, right? And this is 63 BC. As it was, they made an exception of what are called the days of Saturn. Now, before Saturday was called the days of Saturn, which Deacon tried to say it's about Saturnalia and worship, the Hellenes, right? They had a day for that for their seventh day where they acknowledged the god of time, Cronus, right? So that day was like called Cronus Day. Then Cronus Day was later translated to being Saturn Day, right? Because the Greeks called that day Saturn, which they adopted from Cronus, right? As it was, they made an exception of what are called the days of Saturn, and by doing no work at all on those days, right? So not doing any work at all on Saturday, the Israelites weren't doing that, afforded the Romans an opportunity in this interval to batter down the wall. The latter of learning of this superstitious awe of theirs made no serious attempts the rest of the time. So the rest of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right, and Sunday and all that, they didn't make any serious attempts to attack. This is history. This is history that cannot be denied. They didn't make any serious attempts to attack the Israelites, right? And this is from Cassius, right? But on those days, when they came around in succession, right? So when they came around in totality, because the Romans did not encamp amongst the Israelites. Yes, they had control over Israel, right? But we have to look at the distance. Let's go to Google Maps. Let's look at the distance and just think logically, bro. Logic. Everything got to make sense, right? Rome. Rome is way the hell over here. Israel is way the hell over here. They had to travel very far. This is why it took so many years to conquer Israel or take it in captivity. Because yes, Romans had their armies sanctioned, or some of their people sanctioned amongst Israel. But in totality, they did not have their people encamping amongst us, right? So, meaning what? They would have to know a specific day every week when to attack. How are they going to know when, if it already took 9 days, right? And we use the logic that the Sabbath landed the same day every week, and they were only attacking vigorously on one specific day, which was the Sabbath. How much longer would it have taken for these people who didn't encamp in totality amongst us? How much would it have let me just get that too. How much longer would it have taken for them to take us over if they had to figure out when the Sabbath would be every single month and when it would change every other week or whatever the case may be? How much longer would that have taken, right? Now, what was I about to look up? What was I about to look up? Oh, who were the majority living in Israel during the time of Christ? Jews were the majority. Were Romans the majority living in Israel? No. Right? So was it just huge ass sects of Romans that were encamping amongst us, waiting for us to, hey, they're going to have the Sabbath on Monday. Okay, they're going to have the Sabbath. No. They knew a specific day that they would be coming. every single week. Right? Let's keep it going. Thus, the defenders were captured on the day of Saturn, on Saturday, without making any defense, and all the wealth was plundered. Cassius wrote that the Romans who learned that the Jews rested on the days of Saturn, Saturday, which was known as Saturn's Day in Rome, attacked Jerusalem, a Jerusalem stronghold on those days, right? These words also tally with the writings of Josephus, the same people or the same person that Deacon used. Josephus speaks against him, saying that the day of Saturn's Day or Saturday was their Sabbath. And let's remember that the Israelites weren't worshiping Saturn when they were keeping Saturday Sabbath, because prior to it being called Saturn's Day, they were still following the custom that they had seen with their forefather Abraham, because the Babylonians also had historically a 7th-day weekly Sabbath. But like I said, this is for another conversation, right? These words also tally with the writings of Josephus, showing us that Saturn's Day in Rome coincided with the day kept as a Sabbath by the Jews even into the 1st century BC, right? Because also we have to understand the ruling class, or the ruling king at that time of Rome, was not, he didn't have the authority to change the Sabbath at that time, right? I can go into that account, but we're just trying to keep it for the sake of time. Let's go. A Roman soldier named Frontinus, in his book named Stratagems, writes the account of the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD, saying the divine Vespasian attacked the Jews on the days of Saturn, on which it is forbidden for them to do anything serious and prevailed. Similar to the words of the historian Cassius Dio, this Roman soldier equated that the day of rest, Sabbath of the Jews, to the day of Saturn, Saturday, which was known as Saturn's Day in Rome. The Romans were Europeans. The ancient Greeks, the Hellenes, were us. That's why you see in the New Testament we're called Helleniste, because we were the Greeks by majority. The book of Maccabees, when it talks about Alexander and the Macedonians in history were looked at as a barbaric, subservient class to the Greeks, right? His father, Philip, had rose to power, and those European Greeks had taken over the rest of us. They had overthrown the rest of pretty much the ruling class, the Danites, the ruling class Greek Judites, all that, right? Because it's going to go into all that, man. That's what I'm saying. We're going to go into all that. Even Philo of Alexandria, he says the same thing about Sabbath, right? Did Philo keep a 7th-day Sabbath? I'm using their own historians against them. Yes, according to his writings, Philo of Alexandria observed and emphasized the importance of keeping a 7th-day Sabbath, right? What day did Philo say the day? What day did Philo say the 7th-day Sabbath was? Philo, a Jewish philosopher from Alexandria, Egypt, believed that the Sabbath was on the 7th day of the week, Saturday. The Sabbath was a day of great significance to Philo. Man, that's their own historians that they had brought out against them, that they said were lunar Sabbatarians. Look, man, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High, man. Humbly saying this, man. I love all those brothers, and hopefully they can see the humility that I'm trying to exhibit. All of this was about trying to get us not necessarily on one accord, because brothers say, oh, we're not all going to be on one accord till Christ come back. That is true. But we have to understand that people were keeping a 7th-day Sabbath from Friday to Saturday before Christ, during the time of Christ, and even after Christ, man. I don't think that in totality, it comes down to the point accepting history or not, accepting the scriptures or not, using logic or not. versus just picking picking what's convenient for brothers, man. Or not even convenient. It's just not wanting to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong sometimes. I can say that. It's okay to be wrong. That shows true humility. Like I was saying, those brothers at BOW, when I came and started seeing these things and putting the logic and the scriptures into play, I apologized to those brothers 20 times. Same brothers that brothers was insulting, or this is what brothers have to understand. You're not rooting for your camp. You're not rooting for your leader. You're not rooting for your ego. This is about the truth of the Most High God. Damn it being about MFB, IUIC, Sakari, BOW, Chiefs right, Nathaniel's right. Damn that, bro. This is about our nation and getting our people to understand the truth. This is not about self-empowerment, how brothers try to make it seem like it was about for me. It's not about that. I can give a damn about that. I came into this truth learning from WFI first, actually, before joining Sakari, but I came into this truth through the Most High, passing brothers lessons to me. I did it without a camp before, and I can do it again without a camp because it's all about loving the Most High. It is not disregard or disrespect to anybody, man. But we have to stop being so starstruck, right? That's why it's saying it's like never meet your heroes, right? We have to stop being so starstruck and thinking that everything that somebody tells us just because they're our leader. It's no different than I was telling my brothers at MFB. I was like, don't listen to me just because you think I'm your quote unquote leader. Don't listen to me. Double check everything, man. We double check everything. And those brothers would correct me when I was wrong or I would do things. Brothers need to have that same respect for all their leadership. Correct niggas when they're wrong. Correct niggas when you see they're really being prideful or doing this, that, and the third, being disrespectful. Do it because the Most High God says to do it. Don't be a respecter of persons. Don't just be quick to jump on the fence and jump on a brother's side to jump on another brother. That's wicked as hell, man. And I want to say I do truly love all you brothers, man. I love all my brothers, and I hope that brothers, can watch this lesson and take something from it, man. Because this is me being truly humble and having humility. Damn the pride, me being right. I want my people to understand that there is a history to this. Part 3 is coming, right? Now, to answer the question about if the new moon was to land in the middle of the week, would you still keep a seventh day, your seventh day Sabbath, Friday to Saturday, or would that restart the new week? Understand this. Days were made before the moon. Days, if you read Genesis, days come before the moon, right? The moon is not made to the 4th day, but days are already made before the moon. The Lord gives you your lights for the day and your lights for the night. You know what I'm saying? What does he say about the stars and the moon? Therefore, your seasons and for your times. The moon dictates your seasons, your times. Yes, like the beginning of because a day start at night. A new day is starting, but the sun dictates that it's a day, right? Your moon dictates really the seasons, right? Just like it says in Sirach. Your stars dictate the seasons, right? So if your new moon or your month starts in the middle of the week, you still have a weekly Sabbath, your weekly day cycle. They're on 2 different cycles. How do we prove this other than the Bible? How long does it take for the moon to come back around? And you see, I'm doing this all on the fly. Look, the moon's orbital period, the moon's actual orbit around Earth takes about 27.3 days. Now, we didn't have estimations or integers or anything like that. So you just round it up. We didn't have telescopes or calculators to be like, oh, it's 23 point. It says it takes 27 days, basically, for the moon to orbit around the Earth. But the moon takes approximately 29 and a half days to complete one full cycle, right? For the whole month to come back around. That's why you see it being you see the months in even the Jewish encyclopedia or even within these historic calendars, you see the months varying from any point between 28 days to 31 days because they were taking measurements. They had people sitting outside taking measurements of, damn, okay, how many days is this month gonna take? How many days is this month gonna take? And you see, when you look at the Hebrew months and days, they vary, right? Just giving an example. It's like 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, right? So it tells you that the moon is not a perfect cycle. And days were made before the moon. So you can't calculate and say that you got to, when a new moon comes, oh, I got to start my count, your weekly count. No, that means your monthly count is changed. But your weekly count stays the same because days are made before the moon, right? Like I said, we're going to get into that in a part 3. I love you guys, man. All praise to the Most High God. I hope this message gets out the right way. I hope it's not insulting. I hope it's not disingenuine, because I mean it genuinely. And I said all this as a lesson for brothers, man, and as something for brothers to reflect on about themselves. I did a lot of self-reflecting, so why can't you? You know what I'm saying? I love everybody. I would like to say, call Allah Yahweh Shema Mashiach Al Shai. All praise to the Most High God, man. Let's get up out of here, man. Shalom.